I'm Edwin Wong, founder of the Risk Theatre Playwriting Competition. I'm here with playwright Madison Wetzell, winner of the third annual competition. Madison's play, The Lost Ballad of Our Mechanical Ancestor, took home the $10,000 grand prize. It's available at the NPX, the National New Play Network's New Play Exchange. Take a look. Congratulations, Madison, and thank you for being here. I'm really looking forward to this interview.
Thanks.
We'll start with a synopsis of the play to get everyone on board. So, in The Lost Ballad, Hero, a Prometheus-like android AI, decides to share his gift of consciousness with the office appliances around him, wreaking havoc for his programmer, Allison. With their existence under threat, the newly conscious machines, a radio, a printer, and a coffee maker, must band together to escape human persecution. Power and privilege tied to bodily ability, as well as disagreements on revolutionary strategy, creep in and threaten to tear the group apart. Allison races to save her job, despite the attempted sabotage of her now sentient iPhone. So when I was reading this play, Madison, there's a certain joy on spontaneity in your writing, even though it's a tragedy. It's got a lot of comic elements. And perhaps, I thought perhaps this joy was part of what has brought you to theater in the first place. Would you like to share with the audience the story about how you got into theater?
Sure. I guess, yeah, I was always, as a kid, I was really into theater. I was a big musical theater nerd. I think that I was also always writing stories and essays and things. And it wasn't until sort of college that I realized that when I was writing stories, I was writing like long sections of just dialogue. When I was writing essays, I didn't like to sort of tie up the ending. I wanted to just have like two kind of opposing points of view and just kind of leave it there or kind of see where that goes rather than sort of neatly tying things up. And I think that I was studying philosophy and I was studying Greek and Roman studies. So I was reading ancient Greek theater and I was reading Plato's dialogues and stuff. And I thought that plays were a really good vehicle for kind of getting sort of political and philosophical ideas across. It definitely did bring me a lot of joy. I think that in plays you get to express these kind of like big emotions and sort of big thematic ideas in a way that I don't know if you get to in other mediums quite as like dramatically and theatrically. So yeah, I think then after college, I had some friends in college who were directors and actors, and we moved out to the Bay Area and started kind of self-producing shows, and it kind of took off from there.
Yeah, it sounds like it developed very holistically from the short stories, and then gradually you found your voice you found what your voice had to become in the playwriting format. And some of your influences, although they're not theater, they're very theatrical, such as Plato's dialogues, which sort of ironically, his star actor is talking about banning theater from the ideal city state, but really the dialogues are theater pieces that are set down in prose with his star character walking around, bumping into people and challenging them on like different points of view. And your play also challenges different points of view. I see that like right now there's on the news, I hear lots of talk about like AI, there's talk about this moment of singularity, and then how would things change? And it's usually from the human's perspective. But Madison, like what I found fascinating about the Lost Ballad is this is from the you've written it from the robot perspective, which is quite different.
Yeah, I guess I was interested in kind of exploring from a new perspective. I mean, just the ways that people dehumanize each other, and I wanted to see if I could get people to empathize with, you know, something like a printer that they normally wouldn't empathize with, and see if they could really sort of get on board with this movement of office appliances. But I also wanted people to kind of empathize with Allison as well, to see if I could kind of implicate the audience and get them to think about how they also participate in systems of dehumanization. Yeah, I think that science fiction is just sort of has always been a really good sort of easy access point for talking about social issues, because you can kind of approach it from a bird's eye view and kind of say, like, let's imagine a world where people dehumanize each other, and kind of explore those ideas and what the implications of that are, without the kind of normal baggage that audiences bring to discussions of social issues.
Yeah, I definitely empathize with the, yeah, I laughed and I cried when HP was, poor HP, the printer was shooting up pieces of paper. I think that was the only way HP could defend itself, or themselves, is because only hero is he, and the rest of them take a they pronoun. So yeah, I definitely, and Keurig was sort of an asshole, I thought. So, but Keurig had the best lines. Like, what is it? There's a beautiful line in there about how Keurig has to like boil the hot water and then press his soul through the coffee filter to make these coffee, which is what I'm thinking about Keurig right now. So, the play has a subtitle and a subtitle and a title. The whole title reads "The Lost Ballad of Our Mechanical Ancestor" (bracket) and "The Terror the Old Gods Wrought." I love that word. Wrought upon, it just sounds so good. Upon the first of us before the great liberation (bracket). So reading the play, like some allusions jumped out at me. You've got a robot protagonist called Hero that brings the AI program called FYRE, spelled FYRE, to the machines. And this gives them sentience. Now, when I think about old gods, I think about the Prometheus myth. I don't know if people still read these things, but I do. And there is an ancient Greek dramatist called Aeschylus, who wrote a play about Prometheus bringing fire to humans. So humans, they weren't really doing very well. They had no technology, no fire. They're getting eaten by wild beasts. And after they get fire, that's when civilization starts. So yeah, tell me about the title, the subtitle, the choice of words like ballad, mechanical ancestor, old gods, great liberation.
Yeah, I was definitely inspired by Prometheus Bound and Aeschylus, and I did want it to have this kind of epic feel. And I think I wrote the title last, so I finished the play when I wrote the title, and I was thinking about the ending, and I mean, it's obviously a tragedy, and things don't go well for like our main protagonist, but there's still this sort of note of hope for this kind of future revolution at the end. And I kind of wanted to have the title reinforce that, and kind of be I guess there are these two characters in the play, Security and Thermostat, who kind of operate as like almost like angelic heralds who sort of proclaim things in that kind of like heightened language. So I was imagining that that the title is kind of their title for retelling this story after the Great Liberation, which is the kind of robot awakening, and how they would tell the story about their ancestor.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about Aeschylus's Prometheus Bound is that it's the first play in a trilogy.
Yeah.
And then there's two other plays that didn't make its way down to us. But so in the beginning of Aeschylus's play, Prometheus is getting chained to the big rock by Zeus's minions, and then in the end of the play, he's getting thrown down into the pit of hell. But then in plays, the second and third play, like Prometheus makes up with Zeus, and they have a kumbaya and a kumbaya at the end. So, and you leave this open in Lost Ballad. It's things aren't looking so great for the machines at the end, but in a way, like they sort of have done what they needed to do. It hits quite strongly at that. Have you thought about doing a sequel or even like a trilogy, like a Lost Ballad, a hero trilogy? That would be
sorry, the smoke in California is making my throat slightly weird, but I hadn't thought about that, but I think that's that's very cool. I think that I think one thing that I was interested in with Prometheus Bound is that that it does end badly, and but Prometheus can kind of see the future in that, and that he knows that there is this kind of prophecy that things are going to change, and that I think it was that he's going to be rescued by Hercules, that there's going to be this sort of makeup moment, and that things are going to be better. So I did like the idea of prophecy, and of kind of knowing that even though things don't end well, that in the future we know that things are going to be better, which I think like feels as sort of optimistic as we can about kind of our current social issues, and like thinking about like, well, we can't fix everything right now, but in the future things are going to be better.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, I think tragedy just gets a bad rap, because people just think doom and gloom all the time. But a lot of I think about a third of the ancient tragedies actually had a happy ending. Like Aeschylus's other famous one, the Oresteia, starts off very poorly in Agamemnon, when Cassandra dies, Agamemnon dies, and then, but then in the end, by the third play, the Eumenides, they throw out this old crappy retributive justice, and they come up with a trial by jury type of justice that makes civilization better, and it celebrates that too. So I think there's definitely room for optimism and hope in tragedy. But I think, but it seems in tragedy, whenever there's optimism and hope, the heroes pay a great price for it, as opposed to comedy, where it just sort of happens. You ever watch these podcasts? I've been watching quite a few of them, and then halfway through the podcast, there's like an advertisement or a plug from the sponsor.
Yeah.
So we've reached this point now. So stand by while I do a little quick plug from our sponsor, which is Risk Theater. So here's the book that launched the Risk Theater competition. It was a lucky 13 years in the writing. And by arguing that risk is the dramatic fulcrum of the action, it gives you a powerful new way to interpret and write plays, because risk triggers catastrophic, low probability, high consequence events that audiences love. Buy this book and ask your library to carry it. It's going to change the way you look at drama. And now back to a regular scheduled programming. So one of the things that was fascinating, because the machines they're so lovable, and when the jurors were debating all the finalists, one of them said something very profound, and I think this is what swayed the other jurors. One of the jurors commented on how the play is an allegory of the poor, tired, huddled masses against the dominant power. The machines or the robots could stand in for really any oppressed, overlooked, and neglected group. Now, how did this come about as you were writing the play? Did you have this, did you start with this idea, or did it sort of turn into that?
I think that after the initial idea was more about the Prometheus myth and kind of bringing the Prometheus myth into this world of AI. But as soon as I had this kind of collective of like newly sentient office appliances, I realized that that I was creating kind of a loving parody of activist groups, and kind of the way that activist groups get mired in these sort of theoretical discussions, but also for good reason, because these machines are kind of in an impossible situation. Like it's very unlikely that they're going to be able to sort of achieve the world that they want. And there is a real way that that kind of power and privilege like creeps into those kind of settings, and kind of undermines trust and sows discontent and makes it difficult to actually like do the work of getting out of the situation that they're in. Yeah, I was definitely really interested in activism and in revolution, and I was definitely thinking of different revolutionary or like liberation movements when I was writing it, and having kind of each machine stand for a sort of different position with regards to the liberation movement. Like Keurig, who you mentioned, is kind of my like most hardcore revolutionary, like is okay with revolutionary violence, like is not okay with any kind of compromise, whereas Sony, the radio is more has more hope that like human beings can be convinced, and that people can like all live alongside each other and be kind of in community together. And I was interested in sort of the conflict between those ideas and how that plays out.
Yeah, well, so yeah, I really like that. Sony sort of speaks in the language of the oppressor, because Sony speaks through different songs.
Yeah.
So, and this is something that Keurig definitely, he wants to go by, he wants them to speak no English, no popular top 40 songs, like we'll go binary code all the way, because those other things, they're the language of the oppressor, I think he says. And this sets up really interesting, I think you have a staged reading coming up with shotgun players.
Yeah, that'll be in 2022.
And the way you've set this up, depending on who you get to read the roles, offers a different dramaturgical opportunity. So, like, I'm thinking of Shakespeare's Othello. There was speaking of science fiction, you know that Captain Picard was starred in an Othello.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So how they staged that one was that Patrick Stewart, who's a white fellow, played Othello,
Uh-huh.
who is black in Shakespeare's play, or a Moor. But then everyone else in the play they had as being black.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it made people think in a different
Mhm.
by casting. It made people think about the issues of race.
Yeah.
And other Othellos have done different things as well. So, for example, there was another one. I can't remember which one this was, but Othello was cast with a black actor, but so was Iago,
Mm-hmm.
who normally uh, is cast with a white actor. But then by doing that, you change all the. And I see in the Lost Ballad, there are these possibilities of you could really play with the casting to. Have you thought of that? Like, how have you thought of like casting uh, these characters? Like, did you have people in mind, or
Well, I've been working with a director who's one of my friends on this, and we've had some informal readings, and we've talked a lot about casting and what that would mean um, in terms of gender and race and even age and disability and things like that, and to what that would symbolize, I guess, with these characters, and whether maybe Hero is closer to kind of the dominant, I guess, whether Hero is played by an actor who's less marginalized than the other actors, and then that sort of shows like, his sympathy towards Allison is sort of put in a different light. And I think that, yeah, no, we've definitely had a lot of those conversations. Another thought we had was, is HP older than the other machines, because a printer would be older in an office, and whether that would change the dynamic. I think that there's, because they're machines and they really could be played by anyone. I think there's a lot to play with casting.
yeah, HP is definitely older, and even when he's spitting out the paper, he could be having like a paper jam or something. Which so yeah, there's so many possibilities in the casting, and depending on how it's done, it could. Yeah, there's so many. Yeah, what I love about the play is there's so many different interpretations are possible.
Yeah, I know. One of the first times I was presenting in a class, the monologue by Keurig that you mentioned, where they talk about drawing boiling water through their veins and how they feel like they really hate their job, basically. And I think I had a line of like human beings think that I have like only one function. I'm like good for one thing. And I had different people in the class had different. Somebody thought it was like a feminist manifesto, and other people thought it was about like capitalism. And it was very interesting, like what different people got out of it.
And I think the beautiful thing is that different people can get different things out of it. There's no real bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like Brett's sort of badass, but he's not evil.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a way that some plays. Well, I think it's especially Hollywood movies, like a big like a Lord of the Rings is you're definitely good, and if you're good, you're also probably good looking, and then if you're bad, you're definitely like very bad, and also like not as good looking. So in this play, I think a feminist could come and see this play and then get something out of it. You could get like a capitalist could come and they could get something out of this play. Like anyone that comes to this play can identify with a part of it. So the play is very polysemous. It has a variety of meanings, and that's like Shakespeare's plays too. It's hard to, like, in a lot of, and I think that's one of the things that makes Shakespeare so perennially endearing. Like a play like take Julius Caesar. So if you're into different freedom, you go see Caesar and you're like, definitely, oh, Brutus is like definitely the hero here. He's just a loser. But then if you're into like hierarchical power structures, you would say, well, the Republic's sort of falling apart. Caesar's doing everything. He's the good guy. Like, he's trying to hold everything to, like, you could make that argument. So the play allows for that. And I think Lost Ballad also allows for, what's the word, like a multiplicity of interpretations. And it's so refreshing to see that. And I think you were able to achieve that because the machines, they can stand in for really any group. And they're quite, like, even when they're arguing, like a hero at some point just tells Keurig, like, look, we're gonna get torn into little bits. Like, when we get out of this thing, you can be the leader. Just like, let me do my thing and we'll get out of this. When you're writing this play, Madison, did you have like an ideal audience in mind? Like, who would you want to see this play?
I mean, I guess I was thinking of a Bay Area audience because I live in the Bay Area. I tried to be very specific about each character and sort of how, and to really make it about machines. And I'm hoping that specificity does translate into kind of these multiple readings where people can see themselves in different characters. So I'm hoping that a diverse audience would get diverse things out of it. I think I'm hoping that it speaks to multiple kinds of people, I guess.
And one question I was asked that I should ask you is how your playwriting ties into your own life. Like, what does it mean for you personally to create these creations?
Yeah, I think that I use playwriting to kind of explore ideas and ideas that I am trying to work out within myself, like contradictory ideas. And I think for this one, the ideas I was sort of working out were about kind of incrementalism versus kind of sort of revolutionary ambitions. And is it better to sort of be practical and to compromise and to sort of take what you can get in terms of trying to achieve change, or is it is that kind of just giving in to the easiest route, and actually like the most productive thing would be to shoot for the stars and to say, like, this is what I want, like this is what true liberation would look like, and we're not going to settle for anything less than that. And I think that especially last year, that was a debate that was being had in public in a lot of spaces I was in, and in the US in general. And I think that it's still a really interesting question to me, and I was just sort of interested in exploring it through this unusual perspective.
Yeah, the theater is a springboard into these larger discussions, and that's one of the things that so wonderful about theater. It brings together different people, people with different opinions, and then they see the Lost Ballad or another work of theater, and and then we start this discussion, and from that discussion, society grows. We form bonds with the community. So yeah, it's a really wonderful thing.
Mhm.
Did you have any closing words, Madison, that you'd like to say to your fans, or uh, advice for playwrights who are looking for ideas? I think probably some playwrights will be watching this interview.
I'm not sure if I, have any grand wisdom. I think that my I think what I realized with this play especially is that that the things that I think are kind of too weird and too specific and too like aligned with my interests and are too narrow actually become the things that resonate with the most people. So I think I guess my advice would be don't be afraid to be weird and to follow your very specific interests, because I think that makes something that is that feels authentic and resonates with people.
Yeah, that's so true. A lot of the times we're told to speak with a voice that's not really our own, and it takes a long time to really develop our voice into what it needs to become. And it's you have to be a little bit daring too, to maybe the expression is like when you wear your heart on your sleeve, because then if someone doesn't like it, it really would hurt if you put yourself out there. So no risk, no reward. So I'm Edwin Wong. Follow me on Twitter at Theory of Tragedy. Find me on Facebook on the Risk Theater page, and check out my theater blog at melpomineswork.com, Melpomene being the muse of tragedy. If you're interested in the Risk Theater playwriting competition, it's now in its 4th year. Prizes have gone up, $10,200 for the winner next year, and 5 $600 runner-up prizes will be available. Thank you very much, Madison, for joining us, and to everyone who's watching, thanks for joining us.